If you don't like who's in there, vote him out. Willie Nelson, thank you, Willie, and welcome back to Turnout Tuesday. We're just 1 week away from the most consequential election of our lifetimes. And I mean that because healthcare, the economy, climate change, our basic rights of Americans, our democracy itself, they're all on the ballot. Now, they're not literally on the ballot, of course. They're on the ballot in the sense that Trump and his enablers, the Republican Party, are attacking them, and big money is attacking them. Democracy, our Constitution, our rights, the economy, healthcare, climate change, these are big issues. These are the most central issues. And this is our opportunity, our first and only opportunity in this catastrophic administration to strike back. Otherwise, there's no constraint. Otherwise, all you have basically is Trump and his enablers and big money and Fox News. They run everything. Republicans now control all three branches of the government and 33 state governments. Unless we constrain them, folks, they'll be emboldened to do even more harm than they have already. And there is simply no time to waste. If you live in a state that offers early voting, vote as soon as possible to avoid long lines on Election Day. You can check to see whether your state offers early voting at www.vote.org/early-voting-calendar/. Now, if you aren't registered, don't assume that you can't vote. You might still be able to vote. Many states offer same-day voter registration. The states that offer same-day voter registration, let's see if I can remember these in alphabetical order. Here they are: California, Colorado, Connecticut, District of Columbia, Idaho, Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Maryland, Minnesota, Montana, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Utah, Vermont, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. So if you aren't registered and live in one of those states, you can still vote. There are a lot of key races in these states. You are needed. Now, I know many of you, like me, find the recent events that affected this country depressing, discouraging, but we cannot allow ourselves to become cynical or give up. Cynicism is what they want. If we give up, they get it all. The stakes are simply too high. This weekend, we learned of yet another mass shooting in America. This time, the target was a synagogue in Pittsburgh, where 11 worshipers were gunned down. Just before that shooting, pipe bombs were sent to prominent Democrats and the media. But even in these dark times, we must not lose faith in the decency and generosity of the American people. Just look at the outpouring of support in the aftermath of that mass shooting in Pittsburgh. People of all faiths have rallied together to offer support for the victims and their families. Thousands gathered for a vigil yesterday, where hymns were sung in both English and Hebrew. A local Muslim organization has even launched a fundraising campaign, raising more than $100,000 in a matter of days. This is the love and compassion that defines America, not the smallness and hatred of those who seek to divide us. We've got to cling to that compassion and that love. In the words of the late Martin Luther King Jr., darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. We mustn't allow these heinous acts to terrorize us into submission. If we allow ourselves to become overcome with fear and despair or cynicism, we only strengthen the forces that seek to divide us. The only answer is to forcefully reject hatred and violence by reaffirming the democratic principles that have guided America through the dark times before. It starts with exercising the right to vote, the most powerful, non-violent expression of our resolve. Meanwhile, Trump and his enablers, they're going to continue to embolden hatred and violence for their own political gain. Of course they are. Since taking office, Trump has ramped up fear and hatred toward immigrants, journalists, black athletes who won't stand for the anthem, major media, prominent Democrats. In recent weeks, he suggested that criminals and terrorists from the Middle East had joined a caravan of immigrants heading toward the border, even floated a conspiracy theory that George Soros, the billionaire philanthropist, helped fund the caravan. Fox News has magnified that fear and hate. A guest on Lou Dobbs' show on Fox News claimed the caravan was being funded by, quote, the Soros-occupied State Department, unquote. Not incidentally, that same week, Soros was among the targets of the bombs sent to prominent Democrats and members of the media. A Florida man who identifies himself as a Trump supporter was arrested in connection with the attempted bombings. Hours before a gunman entered a synagogue in Pittsburgh and killed 11 worshipers, he reportedly wrote that a Jewish organization for refugees, quote, likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I cannot sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics, I'm going in, unquote. Bombs mailed to political leaders. Threats against the media. A shooting in a place of worship. None were directly ordered by Trump or his propaganda affiliates. They didn't have to be. Trump's demagoguery inspired it. Fox News' magnified it. Trump's threat of a so-called immigrant caravan, it's just another fear tactic. He's creating a crisis where there is none. That is the art of the demagogue. Create a crisis where there is none, in order to bolster Republican chances at the polls. He's sending 5,000 troops to the border. And he's ready to invoke an executive order barring Central Americans from even seeking asylum at the border, which is perfectly legal and, one might say, morally necessary, given our own role over the decades in contributing to the violence there. But here are the facts. Number one, the caravan remains over 800 miles away and it won't arrive for another month. Number two, it has already dramatically dwindled in size. Number three, it's now almost entirely destitute families traveling with children and living off of food from people along the way. Number four, there's no evidence it's infiltrated by terrorists or criminals, none at all. Number five, illegal crossings are not a problem anyway. They are substantially lower than the levels in recent years. That's what they do. Demagogues, throughout history, they manufacture crises to gain power. Trump is nothing, and I want to repeat this. He is nothing but a demagogue. To further excite his base, he's now even talking about issuing an executive order that would prevent anyone born in the United States to non-American parents from being a citizen of the United States. Hello? Last time I looked, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States says anyone born in the United States is an American citizen. But apparently the Constitution means nothing to Trump, especially when he can use demagoguery to get votes. So what can you do? November 6th is your chance to repudiate this demagoguery at the ballot box. We can no longer abide a president who uses hate as a political strategy, or for that matter, a news network that uses hate as a marketing and ratings tool. It's time for decency to rise up against both and reject him and reject it loudly, clearly, and permanently. Now, turnout is going to be everything, so encourage your friends and relatives to get to the polls. If you'd like to do even more, join one of the many events going on around the country to get people to the polls. Sign up to knock on doors and make calls at thelastweekend.org. Now, this is one word, thelastweekend.org. This will give you an indication at this position, at this particular place, what you can do, where you can do it, how you can have most effect this last weekend before what is arguably the most important vote of your lifetime. And now for your questions. Brad Smith, what are the Democrats' chances? I'm nervous Republicans are fired up. Brad, again, turnout is everything. I want to emphasize that the party of non-voters, the people who don't vote, is larger than either the Democratic or Republican parties. Which means that even if the Republicans are fired up, it's the non-voters, the people who normally don't vote, who need to get out there, and you need to get them out there. Or if you are a non-voter, you need to get out there. Democrats are fired up too. In fact, I haven't seen Democrats this fired up, but being fired up is not enough. You got to actually do it. You've got to vote. I remember in the last election in 2016, I would talk to crowds about Democratic candidates, and they would say, "Oh, great," and they'd applaud, and there were young people, a lot of young people, and then I'd say to those young people, if you don't actually translate this event, it's great for you to be here, but if you don't translate this event into actual votes, you might as well be on Mars. And that's the truth. That's what our political system depends on. Tracy Jaffe, how do I find my polling place? Well, Tracy, you can find a polling place if you go here to headcount.org/verify-voter dot registration slash. Derek Clark, what news sources can I count on for accurate, reliable content? Derek, you can go to this Facebook page. You can also, I think the mainstream media, by and large, here's what I do. I read every day the New York Times. I try to read the Washington Post. I also try to read the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal is very conservative. It's Rupert Murdoch. Don't read the editorial page. I find that they're nuts. But in terms of their coverage, pretty good. Jordan Weaver, what can I do if everyone around me feels discouraged about the election? Jordan, you can say to everybody around you who is discouraged about the election, they are entitled to their feelings. They can be discouraged, but they have to vote. If anybody is discouraged and basically says, I'm so discouraged I'm not going to even try, well, what happens then? The moneyed interests and the bigots and the racists and the xenophobes, they win. Look, many of you, because you're already watching this, you agree with almost everything I'm saying, but what we have to do, what I'm doing, what you have to do is get out and get others. Spread the word. Make sure that young people, other young people, if you are a young person, make sure that minorities, African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, women, everybody who has a direct stake, and we all have a direct stake in this, make sure that everybody actually goes out and votes. If you have to go out with your car and help people get to the voting places, do that. This is a huge, huge, huge deal. Yeah, you can be discouraged. After last week, I'm pretty discouraged. But that's no excuse for inaction. 1 week away. As always, a special thank you to Shada Izamian, Omri Shir Dalal, and Andrew Santana. And next week, we will be back. We're going to have a special. I don't know exactly what our special is going to be or precisely when it is going to be. We'll communicate that on our Facebook page. Until then, please work your butts off.